Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the TIHA Archival Conversations. Those are brought to you by Trans and Intersex History Africa, where African trans and intersex communities document our histories, movements, struggles, and survival in our own words, in our own voices. My name is Victor Mukasa, and today we're heading to Namibia in Southern Africa, a country where debates around gender identity, constitutional rights, citizenship, and queer visibility have increasingly entered public and political spaces over the years. And within that evolving landscape, trans communities have had to navigate invisibility, institutional barriers, social conservatism, and the emotional cost of public visibility. Our guest today is someone who has become a part of that history. Deyonce Cleopatra Naris is a Namibian transgender activist, community leader, and mother, known for her advocacy around healthcare access, legal recognition, gender-based violence, and the rights of gender-diverse communities in Namibia. She has also played a leading role within the transgender, intersex, and androgynous movement of Namibia, call it TIAMON. That's an organization that we know we all first meet most of the time when we hit Namibia in the search. Deyonce, welcome to TIHA Archival Conversations. How are
Hi,
you?
Victor. Hi, Victor. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so privileged to have you here, Deyonce. You have done amazing work in Namibia. You have done work that has actually given us what to speak about today. You have made history in Namibia. And today we would like to just have that conversation, holding space for you here, sharing the history, yours and that of the movement, and adding to the collection of stories, the archives of Trans and Intersex History Africa, which is our history as trans and intersex people. So, Deyonce, as we begin today, before we dive deep into all the activism and organizing, I would like us to briefly situate your personal story within the Namibia that you grew up in. Of course, Namibia has history. And many times when I have the ladies here, trans women, the question about when they were born is a little bit tricky. And so it is up to you how you would like to tell us so that we know around what period, even if it was a major event happening, you were born in Namibia. How were you? How did you manage in that Namibia? Where do you come from, Deyonce? Where were you born? When? A little bit. Where you born? And how was life for the young trans Deyonce?
You see, this is the part where I tell people, please buy the book. It's about to come out, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. What's the
Yes.
book called?
So unpacking the many facets of Queen Cleopatra, this living story of Deyonce. And obviously, when we talk about it now, we'll get into it, right? So,
Right.
Namibia gained its independence in 1990. So I was born just the year before, right?
Ah,
So that's me giving you my age. Um,
darling, you're one of the 80s children. All
so I am 80. I am definitely from the 80s. I think I behave as much like it. But I
Mhm.
mean, most of my friends are elderly women.
Okay.
But I was born in, I guess, the heart of Damaraland in a small town called Yusakos. Spent most of my childhood around in the city, in the capital city, and then by high school I was in the coast, right? So yeah, that. And then most of my early adulthood, I lived in the southern part of Namibia.
Right.
And all of these had their various different experiences. Obviously, through my way early childhood, if I can remember, um, it wasn't really easy. I think my biological father
Yeah.
had an expectation, sort of,
Mhm.
his firstborn male child. So he had really messed up dreams, man.
Right. For this
Right.
late born.
Um, yeah, because I mean, and again, it's something I've processed over the years with therapy and the work I do. That, I mean, as parents, they obviously had dreams for this particular human being that they're bringing into the world.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody has expectations for this complete strangers that we bring into the world, and his, I guess, was for a soccer player, boy
Mhm.
that carried the what. At some point, I remember during my childhood, I got
Mhm.
put in a soccer match. During practice, the coach didn't think much of it, but I think everybody was so afraid of my biological father that he just had to put me somewhere. So he put me there by the goal post. Mind you, until today, I'm traumatized. I still keep saying
Oh.
yeah, no, guys, I also don't understand the fascination about soccer. It's 22 sweaty men on grass chasing after a ball. But okay, that I may not have the entire world come for me.
Yeah.
So I'm in the goalpost. I think I was trying to be brave and impressive, trying to stop the first ball, and I swear to heaven, I think it ended up here on my diaphragm, and it felt
Mm.
like my guts were spilling and I couldn't breathe. And after that, I just kept saying to everybody, if you don't stop that ball over there, it's going right in here. Um, I tell you, the
So
soccer
you didn't
team
have
lost.
fun playing soccer?
No, the soccer team lost 14-0. Do you think that was fun?
No, no, no. You were in the wrong place,
14
maybe.
14-0. I had the coach mad at me. I had all the players mad at me. My dad didn't think it was
I
a
would like to
joke.
go very deep into this soccer match because I know you were just dodging the ball every time it comes, the little diva. So, were you a little diva at that point? How was your expression? How were you treated then by your teammates, your schoolmates, your family?
I was very soft. I was a very soft, feminine child, that perfect little diva. That's why
Mm.
in the beginning of the story I said I don't think the coach thought much of it. I think the coach took one look and the coach knew this is the disaster waiting to happen. I think the reason why he put me in the goalpost, if he
Yeah,
had probably put me on the far end of the field, I would have just been running up and down and they could have stood a chance. I don't
right,
think that was the most strategic thing for him to do. But
right.
I think everybody knew. Everybody knew. My biological father, I think primarily because of the fact that I was so soft and feminine and
Yeah.
I love playing with my older sister's dolls.
Mm.
Those are just some of the little things that would come through. So he thought he could, toughen me up, and I think this was
Right.
his way of doing the things that were meant to
And
get
at that
me.
point, most of Africans grew up, knowing most of us didn't know there was no language, there was nothing. We expressed ourselves the way we did. At that point, were you aware of your expression being, a little bit different from what was expected?
Heck no. Heck
No.
no. At
Mhm.
that point, I think I was still just being a child. At that point, I don't even think I knew.
Yeah.
It was around high school. By
Mhm.
then, I had relocated. Also, remember, I didn't. At that point, I only knew one half of my parents, which is my biological father, right?
Right.
And it was around 9 when I got to meet my birth mother.
Uh,
And at that point, she was seeing another gentleman. And seemingly, it was during my high school.
Mm-hmm.
So from my grade from a sort of like a 9 year old to a 11, 12, I still didn't know. It
Yeah.
was here around 13, 14 that I could literally sense, okay, something is really different here.
Right.
It was grade 8, essentially, when really now I'm starting to make friends. I'm starting to talk to people. I'm starting to do social interactions.
Mm.
And I wasn't very comfortable around the boys. Um, I would also, and I think a lot of the boys, I guess, noticed because, the pulse, it drops and all of a sudden the hips start to sway.
Mm-hmm.
um, so people start noticing. And
Mm.
at that point, I didn't even know when people started using the word morphe towards me what it had meant, right?
Yeah.
Then I had a friend, um, my bestie, she's born on the 4th of October. I'm born on the 5th of October, same year, same hospital.
Wow.
And this was the girlie that she would always say, Johnny, what do you like? And then I'd always be like, I'd go to things like food, and then
Mm-hmm.
and in the meantime, she was referring to boys, I guess, because she knew, but I didn't. And at that point, I was just like, I kept dodging it. Then it started happening at home, um, more worse. Because fast forward, my birth mother, and the gentleman she had married, which I now fondly call my dad, which is the only
Right.
father figure I think I knew,
Right.
both had become evangelical prophetic pastors at that point in time also. So
Wow.
imagine my parents becoming huge pastoral figures over here, and
Right.
me also finding my identity over here, or seemingly
Right.
starting to notice my difference over here. It
Mm.
wasn't a very good environment,
Mm.
because the confusion just got worse.
Right.
Here's the cherry on the cake: when your prophetic evangelical pastor, stepfather, is
Mm-hmm.
the one that figures out that you are different before you do,
Wow.
and
Wow.
keeps coming home with homosexuality pamphlets from the then Rainbow Project,
Ah.
which is the first LGBT organization, um, when sort of CNN and BBC are showcasing the gay revolution of America, the same-sex
Right.
marriage revolution, and
Right.
he keeps yelling at me because I'll be in the room. So he'll be like, "Oh, Des, come look here," and then I'll come run over, and then he'll be like, "What do you think about this?" And then I just always get annoyed because I didn't even know what it was about. And I'm
Oh.
leave me alone, because I was already getting picked on at school for these
Right.
things. So I
Mm.
didn't really think it would be something acceptable at home. And I
Right.
remember at that time also, there was, I guess what we called it that time, a morphine in the church, right? And
Mm.
I saw how people were reacting to that person, because
Mm.
there was a trans woman, it's what we would call now trans women, but they had a very
Right.
feminine expression, you
Mm.
know, they were wearing the ladies' clothes, the makeup, the cool stuff, you know?
Mm.
Um, and I saw how people treated them in the church, right?
Mm. Mm.
So I didn't, so it made me uncomfortable, the fact that my pastor father is sort of asking me about these things as if, because I kept feeling like I was being goated,
Mm.
like, you know, like, dare you say yes, and we will show you. So
Oh,
it
that's what you
that's
thought.
kind of like the feeling I got. Um, he seemed to be doing it from a very genuine place because he just kept going.
Right.
At some point, he had introduced me to my first, what we would call now a drag queen.
Okay.
Um, and when the introduction happened, I was so annoyed because I'm just like, why is my father introducing me to this morphine? But then when I sat down with the person, I was so comfortable and we started talking and sharing it. That's how I sort of started meeting other morphes, right?
Okay.
For the lack of a better word. I'm gonna
So
keep
in the
using that.
90s,
Yeah,
In
I'm
the,
gonna keep using that until I transition into your 2000s, right?
so in the
Um,
90s, it was about sexual orientation. There
yes,
was
it was about sexual
gender
orientation. There was no gender identity and expression issues.
right,
We knew about, if it was in English, the gays and the lesbians. That
right,
was it.
right,
If we had to go to slang or what we were using in the Kasi, it was
hmm
about morphies and tomboys, right?
right, right.
So that was it.
hmm
So yeah, and then I met that person that introduced me to another person,
Yeah.
and so I started again by grade 10. I
hmm
think I had a really good network of people that I could talk to.
hmm
I think it was similarly around the same time that I started getting involved in the TRPs and the whole, which I
hmm
think also started helping to develop my activism at school.
Right.
Because
Oh, you had
being,
already at school?
yeah, being bullied and being differentiated at school,
This must
I
have
kind of,
you into
from
the
a very
activist that you are. So let's hear about your activism at school.
child, I got myself into all types of things. By the time I got to my grade 12 year, was editor in chief of the school newspaper 3 years consecutively, deputy secretary of the junior town council. I
Wow.
had turned the LRC council's positions into chairpersons and not head boys and head girls.
Wow.
Um,
Impressive.
I was using, yeah, no, I had to figure the school thing out so that I was able to protect other people that were also as different as I was on school ground, right? Toilets
Right.
were one of the first things that really traumatized me in a fight I still have until today.
Yeah.
But at least on school ground, I was able to figure it out. I was using the teacher's toilet. That didn't sit well with some teachers, but I had to literally get some of them to understand that every time I'm in the boys' toilet, I'm either getting beat up or
Yeah.
somebody's trying to flush my head down the toilet. Because a lot of the boys also felt when, if we, the girlies were using the toilet, that we were going in there to spy on them or to look at
All right.
their
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
parts or
Mhm.
whatever. So that sort of like stamped the violence, and then they would always say,
So you
"No,
fought for your space to use the teacher's toilet because
I
you didn't
fought for my
have it
space to use the teacher's toilet.
Yeah.
I fought for that space. At the assembly, when you are at the assembly and then there's a boys line and then there's the
Yes.
girls line.
Yes.
Um, I created a space in between.
Really? So
Yes.
at that point, you knew you were different. You didn't have a name for it,
I
but you
just didn't
know.
have a name for it. I also didn't know at that point if I really wanted to identify as a girl, but
Right.
I sure as hell knew I definitely didn't identify as a boy.
Wow.
That much was clear.
Wow.
Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, and it continued on to the school uniform. I
Right.
know I fought tooth and nail because I would always at some point from my grade 11 year, I was only wearing school shorts. I refused to wear the long trouser
Right.
because they didn't want me to wear the skirt. When I got to my grade 12 year, the grade 12 girlies used to wear um, skirts with pantyhose
hmm
and what we used to call aptiek hakis. Those ones, those shoes that the nurses wear with a little heel?
Yes. Yes.
Those, those ones. So the girlies used to wear
Ah,
that
hey,
on Fridays.
you changed to
So
that.
then I so then I decided on Fridays, my grade 12 year, I would come to school wearing my skirt with my pantyhose and my heel.
Wow. You kept fighting for your right to be
Yeah,
unknowingly.
and I swear they would keep sending me home. And I said, go get your mother. And my mother would not have it. My mother would beat the heaven out of me. She'd always ask the principal to beat me as well because she can't deal with it at home. So I ended up finding a safe place in my grandmother. And my grandmother would usually be the person that I would take to school for these things because the girlie also knew very early. My grandmother from a very young age used to call me Halves, which directly translated into English would mean half.
Uh,
Um, and I guess she maintained that I was never 100% something, but we never really spoke about it. We never got to
so
it
that
until I
was your
think
grandmother,
that was
and
my grandmother, my mother's mother.
and she had already seen something. She didn't have names, but she like Harvest.
Yeah, she's like Halvis. She knew. I was the girlie that grandma would take everywhere. I was the girlie that grandmother would ask
That's
if
interesting.
if the dress is sitting nice, if the what, you know. Yeah, so she became my safe space. She would be the person that I would bring to school for particularly those type of altercations if it had to do with like school
Right,
uniforms
right.
or my hair, because my
Yeah,
hair was also something that I had to fight for at school.
yeah.
From grade 11, I decided also I'm not cutting my hair. I want to
Mhm.
grow it. And at that point, the school was like, no, boys cut their hair. And I'm like, heck no, I am no boy. So then I started taking them through the school code of conduct and the uniforms and things. And I'm like, in this particular school's uniform and code of conduct, there's nothing about cutting the hair. So I think at some point, because of my school uniform and my hair, I went to the regional directorate of the district that I stayed in, and I I got to keep my shorts. I got to keep my hair. I just had to keep it tied down backwards. I couldn't do because I loved my afro. Um, so I couldn't keep my afro, so I had to tie it down. At some
You
point at assembly, I became the example of neat hair. I beat the girls even at their own thing.
of course, of course. But just moving a little bit forward during that period, like how do you then begin to find language, or did you ever find language earlier in that life? Did you meet like? Was that the time you had this person that was introduced to you by your pastor father? Did you know of any organizations at that point, and did you approach them to just check what they're doing?
Yeah, so at that point, I had remember the best friend I spoke about, and she
She's,
seemingly introduced me to a boy who was a little bit older than us. So
mm,
he knew, like he at least had the concepts around homosexual and the gays. So
mm,
he started helping me around language with the gays
mm,
and right.
mm,
But the person that my dad had introduced me to another person, which
right.
was at that point in time, I guess, a key figure in the Rainbow Project.
All right.
Um, and they had me go through like a survey and something, and then I lost contact with them. Fast forward around 2007 to, yeah, 2007, I matriculated, started doing my own thing. So by then I still don't have language. Now it's just gays, feminine gay bottom. And so I started finding, I guess, my role over here, my sexual role, and then my perceived sexual orientation at that point in time. Um, with my perceived sexual identity at that time.
Right.
It was around 2010.
Yeah.
I My mother had sent me to the shop, and I remember we had an argument about it because I wasn't ready. I didn't feel like I wanted to leave the house because I needed to shave the mustache was really
Oh,
becoming a
yeah.
problem. And I really wanted to shave the mustache, and for some reason she wanted what she wanted from the shop. So I just had to leave the house. And I'm walking past the local multi-purpose youth resource center in Wolfish Bay. And I see a bunch of strange looking people, I see the morphies. I see a bunch of morphies. So I'm
Right.
like, morphies, okay. I walked over to the one that looks the most feminine. And I introduced myself, and the girl was like, "Oh, hey!" And then you know how quickly we bond.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, "What's happening here?" And she's like, "No, we have a workshop. There are Mofis from Windhoek here. They want to
Our
come and talk
listeners,
to."
especially those who are going to watch this 50 years from now, Muffins was is a word they used for gay,
Yeah,
right?
Mofis is the word they used for gay. Mofis, again, is an Afrikaans word. It comes from a glove. So if you'll actually find it in the dictionary. It is a wedding glove for women. And I guess it was associated to the gays because the hand
Oh,
was,
okay.
yeah. Yes.
Oh, I
So
get
because
it.
it was, yeah, so
Yes,
that
noted.
sort of became a thing. And it still does have some negative connotation.
Right,
It was supposed to be, it is used as a derogatory term,
right, right.
to devalue and dehumanize people. I think it's only in the early 2000s, late 2000s that we started reclaiming the word,
Reclaiming the
and
word
we,
here.
and we
So
started
you
reclaiming
are at a
our.
workshop now by accident, right?
What's that?
Are you at a workshop now in the trading center by accident?
So now I'm in the workshop by accident. I have walked in, I have sat down, and they are all this is where lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, intersex. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like
Ah,
a lot happening now. Gender
wow.
identity, what? At that point, no expression still.
Yeah.
Now at that point we were talking about SOGI, right?
Yes.
SOGI.
Yes.
And I am asking questions, I'm popping. And I think about 2 months later, after I leave the workshop, I get a phone call.
Mhm.
I'm like, what is this about? And it's the director of Outright Namibia, which happens to be now my, I don't know, best friend for how many years, but the
Outright
infamous Linda.
Namibia, that was the second organization, right?
That's the second organization.
Oh, before we move forward, a big shout out to the Rainbow Project. Was a
Big
very
ups.
it was a very very key player in Africa during that period. Ian Schwarz, may your soul rest in peace. But also Isaacs, uh,
Madeleine.
Madeleine Isaacs. A
Madeleine
shout out to
Isaac.
you all, and I think Linda Bowman was there.
Yes,
And
Linda was there. Linda, when the TRP closed, Madeleine had moved on to work with faith-based leaders.
right,
Ian had become they had moved to South Africa. I think at that point in time, they had
right.
become a representative of the Open
Oh,
Society,
sister, yeah,
OSISA, yeah.
yeah.
And so Linda, with some activists that were left, had then taken over, and they had now formed what they called Outright Namibia.
All right. So
And
so
that's
it's outright
2020.
Namibia that called you now, 2 months after that workshop.
2 months after the workshop, I get a call from Archival Namibia. They are training their first group of community facilitators for their HIV programming. What? They were really impressed by my contributions, and they need a representative of the district region I live in. So I
Wow.
get here, we get to the workshop, we get to the training, do the things, and we're back in town. I have to now implement my first talk shop workshop for MSM and gaming.
Yeah, those were the things those days. Uh,
I tell you, it was not the easiest first
yeah,
workshop for me being a girly, because the boys in there were like, yeah, stand right, sit right. Why do you
yeah,
have to talk like that? Why are you being so extra? And so they're really picking on my femininity.
right.
And it was a little bit of a problem.
Hmm.
And then finished. I called the office with my report. I said, I don't think I really want to do this. I'm not very comfortable. They said, try it out again. I tried out a second workshop, went through almost the same sort of experience.
Mm.
And then at that point in time, I'm also realizing that or recognizing I need the income, so I can't quit.
Yeah.
So how do I work around this?
Mhm.
Um, so I decided I'm finding girlies that look like me because they actually even had girlies that look like me at the workshop and at the training.
Right.
So I started working with transgender women. And at this point, we can now say we know about transgender women. Um, and before that, we were talking about gay women.
Right.
Because the feminine girlies had put together that language. They knew that, okay, they're saying we're gay, but we know we're not men. So we ended up calling ourselves gay women until we came around with the transgender language. When
Ah.
I was still doing the workshops, we were still gay women.
Wow.
Um, and
Wow.
then,
That's very interesting. Gay women. That's what the
yep,
trans women were called, right?
yep, we were gay women.
And
The
that is
trans men, the trans men were still tomboys.
so. It
Um,
was. I remember lesbian husbands and from Namibia, lesbian husbands.
lesbian men, yes,
So this was in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, right?
yep, yep,
When the language was gay women.
yeah, gay women, lesbian men, and so that's how we were identifying at
So
that
at
point.
that point, during that time of Rainbow Project, I remember meeting a trans man from Namibia by first name Silva, so we don't expose them so much. But I remember them beginning to do some work around trans issues. So was that after Outright Namibia, or was it within Rainbow Project?
That was within Outright Namibia. So Outright Namibia had started what they were calling movement meetings, movement building activities. So the gays had their space, the lesbians had their space, the
Ah,
bisexuals were non-existent. When we um, got into the gay and lesbian thematic groups, that's when
yes,
the gay women, lesbian women work came out. um, Linda and Silva at that point were the two people that were
right,
sort of doing the identity work, and Linda had traveled out of the country
yeah,
um, to some trans regional networking space and
right.
had to come back very traumatized because
I remember.
um, the transies told her she's not trans enough. She's a lesbian. She must go and send us the trans person from Namibia.
From Namibia.
Um, and I think then Silva went, and then after Silva went, Kevin went, and they came back and they had started. Yeah, you remember Kevin?
I remember they were both at the first trans meeting for East Central and Southern Africa.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
And so they came back. And together with late Madam Jellerina, may her soul rest in peace, they
mm,
had started a desk in outright Namibia that
yeah,
they at that point called Trans Activist Movement of Namibia, which was
that
called TAMON.
Tamon. Yes, I remember
Yes.
Tamon.
Yes.
Wow.
So at that point they had started TAMON. And then but people were doing their own things. Madam Jolorina, I think, was still doing her degree in hospitality. So
Right.
she got pulled by that. Silva in that space was experiencing some trouble at home.
Yeah.
So they had applied for asylum and they had to leave the country, which
Right.
left myself and Kevin with the desk, or which left Kevin with the desk.
All right.
Um, and I remember then, it was in that same time, 2011, I think,
Mm-hmm.
that a bunch of activists, intersex, trans, had come together in Namibia,
Mm-hmm.
funded by OSISA,
Mm-hmm.
to try and figure out what coalition building would look like for the movement. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it is at that meeting at Hotel Tule that the Southern African Trans and Intersex Coalition was formed, SATI.
Wow. That was in 2011?
That was in 2011. Also, my first space, really encountering a lot of trans people, intersex people in one space. My God, was I traumatized.
Wow.
I could I was no, the room really got heated, right? And I was only getting to learn the language now.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, no, we are one people. We should all be able to get along
Right.
until I guess the different issues of the different movements started coming out, the different politics started to show itself. At some point, I remember both movements turning around and throwing the donor out of the room
Right.
because the donor had commented and they said, "Look, you gave the money. You have no voice in here. These are our issues. Let us get to our issues ourselves." And you had very, very strong activists in the room then. From
Right.
Namibia, you had the Mama Africas, the
Yes.
Linda Bowmans,
Yeah.
myself. From the region, you had um, Spoo. I think they were the head of GDX at that point in time. Mejositao. You had Ntapiseng. You know,
Wow.
you had really key activists. I think I'm not sure if I'm not mistaken. I think Audrey was also in the room. So
Oh,
there were a lot of key activists in the room.
yes.
Um, but and I remember that was the first inception of a coalition.
Right.
I think it was two meetings later that the intersex movement said, look, the trans movement's issues are becoming a little bit too much. We need to remove ourselves.
Right.
And that evolution was quickly happening simultaneously regionally
Right.
as it was in country. Because we had also in country as TIAMON now started figuring our identity out. Who do
Yeah.
we serve?
Yeah.
What are the issues? Where are we based?
Yes.
And it was in
That
2015.
was Tamon or Tiamon.
That was TIAMON.
Tamon. Okay.
It was in 2015 when we sat down in the beginning of the year and we were like, so there's been more development, more community popping up, more people getting involved.
Right.
I was attending more regional capacity building stuff,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that the language is not homogeneous.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not only transgender people or transgender women, but that they are transgender men. And now there was this thing around androgynous people, more and
Mm-hmm.
more in country. We were
Mm-hmm.
hearing about experiences of intersex persons as much as we had not interacted directly with intersex persons, except for this one case that really shook me to the core,
Mm-hmm.
where an intersex minor had gone through corrective surgery
Mm-hmm.
at a very early age. And when they hit puberty, they were going through the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was then that we decided, okay, let us then make the name a little bit more inclusive. Let's
Right.
make sure that we are representing everybody's issues and that
Ah.
it doesn't only speak to trans activists. So
Right.
that's when the name now transitioned in 2015 to Transgender, Intersex and Androgynous Movement of
Of
Namibia,
Namibia.
TIAMON,
And
stating that
Tiamon started as still the desk.
still the desk, still the
Okay.
desk.
Right.
Um,
I
we had
see.
acknowledged that we are transgender persons, intersex persons, androgynous persons. We
Mm-hmm.
have come together to form a movement and that we are definitely from this country called Namibia. They could
Wow.
not tell us otherwise. And that was the thought going into the name. It was towards the end of the year,
Yeah.
as we were going through the different movement meetings and the what, um, the gays telling us we can't be in their space anymore. The the then we sent the trans men over into the gay space, and then they said a vagina cannot tell us about being a man. And so the spaces really became brutal. and
Yeah.
our issues kept being left behind, and the
Mm-hmm.
organization kept prioritizing the LG issues. And I
Mm-hmm.
walked into the director's office and I said, look, nothing personal, bestie. We have developed our frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
We would like you to host our money,
Mm-hmm.
but we want to be an independent body. We want to exist outside of outright Namibia. The
Wow.
director then said, no, look, you guys have been doing amazing. Let's see how it works. And we started working with GDX to pilot
Was that
in
Linda
different.
Bowman then?
Yes, that was Linda
Linda
Bowman
Bowman,
then.
very supportive person,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
supportive of the movement, very supportive of the trans movement in Africa.
yeah. And really, really, really supported us very well, started supporting us, putting together applications.
Right.
I think our first grant we got from the Planet Romeo Foundation to really do some community work.
Mm.
And as you see, TIAMON formalizing itself here in 2015, there were some interesting things happening at regional level also,
Right.
because by then the intersex movement had separated itself,
Wow.
and we were subsequently somewhere in a room where the Southern African Trans Forum was formed at
Wow.
that
When was that?
particular
2015?
2015.
That was a big year.
2015. That was a big year. 2015 was a big year for the regional trans movement. A
Wow.
lot of the organizations, even within the SATF, were formalized, established in 2015. So there was something happening in the air in terms of
Wow.
trans organizing during
Right.
2015. I think a lot of us were more visible, governance was falling in place, activities were falling in line,
Yeah.
and we had moved out at that point. The organization now had moved from being in Windhoek, we had moved to being in the south of the country. And that really also was where a lot of my social welfare work was grounded, right? Because I
Yeah.
moved to the South trying to develop the trans work, and that was where the trans community was more visible because the South was a more tolerant environment
Mm.
for particularly the transgender community.
Right.
But whilst working with trans people and with my own struggle, I recognized that there was a disconnect with friends, family, the people we interact with on a day to day basis. And
Mm.
while interacting with them, we started noticing that even our families are going through things. So it wasn't just that we were the only ones that were homeless or that didn't have food or that people were getting thrown out of their homes, and how best do we curb this? We started
Mm.
doing what people now call PFLAG, the friends and family engagement,
Right.
which led to my personal, more broader social gender work. So I started working with orphans and vulnerable children,
Yeah.
started working with youth, and that sort of also strengthened the organization's visibility and
Right.
support
Right.
because of the kind of work. We were just not focusing on transgender people.
Mm-hmm.
It started really connecting transgender people to the community and started making us a part of our communities, and
Mm.
that we didn't look like some strange phenomenon. Um, I think it was at that point that even the churches were there backing
Yeah.
us up, helping us out. And this was also when I started noticing some of the systematic work, right? When
Yes.
I wanted to,
Yes.
um, it was also the time I got into parenting and mothering. Um, and I remember with my um, first child,
Mm.
we wanted to go through a registration process. Um, and it was a nightmare. Went to Home Affairs, and the lady by the desk asked us to produce our documents.
Mhm.
And we produced our documents, which is our national ID cards, as
Right.
the co-parents.
Mhm.
Mind you, my co-parent is gender non-conforming, female-bodied, but expresses masculine. I
Wow.
am all dolled up like
Wow.
this. So
But
girly
there was
across
no. But your IDs
our
were
ID cards are still as assigned at birth.
right.
So girly at the counter is really messed up at this point. She is gone, gone, gone. She's looking at these documents. She picks up the ID. She looks at me, and then she looks at the. And she's like, "No, do you guys know that if you lie under oath, you can be arrested and you can be fined and you can spend time in jail?" And we're like,
Mhm.
"Girl, we ain't lying under oath. We are telling you this is our child. And we
Right.
would like them to have the right to a name and the right to a birth certificate."
Right.
No, it's not back and forth and back and forth. At some point, I get so annoyed. I look at homegirl. I'm like, "D- what do you mean the child is not ours? How do you think children are made?" It
Mhm.
took my body part, and I literally had to name it. I inserted it into this person's body part. They carried this stranger for 9 months and popped it through their body part. Does that biology make sense to you? Can you register that?
Wow, you had
I laugh about it now, but I was really, really angry at that point. I was ready to grab that
right.
lady
Right. I
over the
feel.
counter because I think home affairs has been the most challenging
Hmm.
of ministries in country.
Hmm.
We were, after moving up and down those corridors, we were finally able to get the poor child registered after
Wow.
a whole month, after a
Con-
whole month of back and forth, right? And
Congratulations.
then, thank you.
Did that
And
open?
then
Did that open up opportunities for other transparent?
I think it opened up opportunities for people to freely be able to, in that particular home affairs office, was a little bit more conscious now
Mm-hmm.
around registrations of diverse parents, right? We couldn't
Hmm. Around
do
what
much
year did
about.
you fight for this?
What's that?
Around what year? What period did you fight for this?
Um, this was around. This should be around 2019. Yeah, 2019. Yes,
Well, so
okay.
those of you
Yeah,
who are
2018,
watching us,
2018.
those of you who are watching us 50 years from now, that is Namibia 20,
Yeah, yeah.
2019.
Trust, check this out. Homeoffice puts me up to another one, right? I must now go get my passport because I need to leave the country again.
Mhm.
And I get I go, at that point in time, they didn't want to allow me to go like this, so I had to do little cornrows in the hair,
Right.
clean up face, no makeup, no nothing. I go take the
Mhm.
picture, and then 2 weeks later, I'm picking up the passport, and the lady at the counter says, "Ma'am, you cannot pick up the passport for your brother. He needs to pick it up himself." Mm. So I'm diligently, also quietly, because we know the privacy settings of these things,
Right.
trying to explain to this girlie, "Listen, it is my
Oh.
passport. It's not my brother's passport. Can you just give it to me?" "No, Meme, please go back." So, and they have those cut out circles for them, right?
Yes, yes.
So I put my hands right through there and I grab her by her uniform
You did?
and I pull her to the glass. I'm like, "Listen here, you old lady. Better give me my passport." Before I know it, I'm being airlifted
Oh,
out of the Home Affairs office by police officers
oh.
and I'm escorted out. For the next 2 days, I can't get back into the building because the police officers won't. I had to get I had to go to the police office, police headquarters of the region because I worked with the police there,
Hmm.
and they had to bring me back to the Home Affairs office to get my passport because I had to apologize and
Wow.
explain. Luckily, the community liaisons officer was sent along with me, so they explained, and I finally got my passport.
Wow.
Um, a day before I'm supposed to travel, and mind you, I am almost what, 540 something kilometers away from the airport.
Right.
And I'm getting my passport late in the afternoon, so I now have to hitchhike, right? All the
Mm.
way to Victor, which put me in so many but safety and security issues in terms
Yeah.
of Ministry of Home Affairs has been a nightmare. I think it's something I
And
continue
that's
to keep talking
representative
about.
of so many experiences of trans people in Africa, especially during that period.
Yeah,
A lot
it
of
was really crazy, but we've been able to do some work
you,
around it, at least
you have
now.
changed it. And are there any policy issues, policy reform, legal reform issues that TIAMON, has undertaken, and any success with that or
So I
challenge?
mean, we've forever been continuously engaging.
Mhm.
Every time we get so close, and then we have another backlash, and we get so
Right,
close. But what we do know in terms of gender affirming healthcare, we have gotten at least the conversation started around putting in guidelines for hormone replacement therapy because that is something non-existent. I think because of our long-standing advocacy,
mm,
now at least people, and I think because we had to do a lot of work with immigrations because of those of us that travel,
right,
people
right.
are at least now able to get their pictures taken with their likeness. There's no need for me to remove my wig as long as it adheres
Oh,
to it's
that,
not in the
that's
face.
progress.
Yeah, yeah. I can do it with a full face of makeup as long as it looks like this. It's
Ah,
not the colors and it's not extravagant. So we've really been able to do some impact. And with progress comes regression. The more
right,
visible we become, the more problematic it becomes because
right.
just last year, the what we then called the Births, Marriages, Death Registration Act, which allowed since 1980 for trans persons to change their gender marker if they have gone through surgery, which we've had on the books, which is very progressive, right?
You had it on the books?
We had it on the books. They take it away in 2025 of all the years.
Oh my God.
Don't get me started. So they went, they rewrote it, and now it's intersex specific. It doesn't include transgender people anymore.
Wow.
So it's a new space for us to advocate again. But
Right.
again, in terms of intersex people, it's also a little bit violent because it requires intersex people to have gone through some surgery to be able to change their gender marker, which again we say is invasive and it's
It's
just a
invasive.
violation of people's human rights. Yeah.
Wow. I think,
And
well, the issue is that, Deyonce, I'll be requesting you at some point to come back here because there is a lot. Just before we even end this, there's the bit I have read about you and how outspoken you have been in Namibian media. I think that you have really been visible. How has this been for you in a country where transphobia still exists? Systematic exclusion is still around. How have
so
you
remember, we're still a very small country, right? We are almost the entire population of South Africa, Soweto, if you have to compare it. I think
really?
even Soweto has more people than we do. We are 3 million, 3.1 million after our last census that was done, I think, in 2024, 2025, which is our last updated one.
Mm,
And I can tell you it's not been easy. I I I I live with anxiety. I have been diagnosed with severe anxiety.
yeah,
I'm not taking medication at the moment. I'm learning to manage it. I think I
right.
used to take medication, but anxiety is one of the things I suffer from most. Navigating public transport is a nightmare because the face is known, you get recognized, so I get picked on, I get bullied on a
That's
lot.
right. Oh,
The taxis sometimes don't want to take me, so I use the apps And that costs me an arm and a leg when I'm working for an organization that is still unregistered after all these years.
Wow.
And so it's heavily dependent on small funds, small grants. So
Mm.
I'm not even getting paid as much as I should for the things that you are reading about me, right? But that also speaks to how trans movements are funded globally, are
Yeah.
funded on the region, and are funded in country. We are probably the most underfunded movement, I can say.
Right.
But in terms of safety and security, it's put me at high risk, really. So I'm
Mm.
constantly navigating safety. I'm constantly navigating risk. My kids have been affected. So a lot of the times we have to try and create safety networks. We have to create language. We have to create support space. We constantly have to think about our mental health and well-being as the space that we're in. I mean, I am practically almost every time something significant is happening in country and I have gone on a media rant and I've done appearances,
Yeah.
I am prone to always going through a breakdown, which
Right.
requires me to take at least 2 weeks out or something before I can
Right.
get back into the crust of things. I remember I decided to go on hormone replacement therapy during COVID, worst ever decision I could have made because people were going through so much at that point, and then the changes in my body and all the stuff I had to carry from people and myself. I had what 3, 4 mental breakdowns. I was also chairperson of the Southern African Trans Forum for those 4 years from 2020 to 2024. So I was the chairperson of the Southern African Forum that had to survive COVID. I think I had another massive meltdown after I handed over my chairpersonship, but we did amazing, amazing work across the
Right.
region. I think we
Mm.
set up the movement very well and it's been able to run as it has been. It's just the pity that as it resonates with all of my siblings across the region and the globe, with the backlashes and what are happening, that we as activists
Mm.
unfortunately have to put ourselves through
Mm.
the most to be able to do what we call the Lord's work.
And on that note, as we begin to close, Deyonce, you are still standing even with all these challenges, all these backlashes. They're happening across the continent. And I'd like to ask you, it's a request, that I leave you alone on the screen and you send a word to trans activists across Africa who are going through the same thing, because many just feel like giving up even. You know, they move forward, it's taken back, then they're in jail, then they're what? But how do you survive? What do you have for them as advice or encouragement? Just a short thing that we can send out to, activists everywhere and to our supporters who might love to hear that message in a timely manner. You introduce yourself, please, and then you go for.
Hello, colleagues of the world. My names are Deyonce Naris, the transgender human rights activist from Namibia. I think it is not an easy time as trans activists across the globe, across the continent. We are going through the most mentally, physically, emotionally. I think it is important for us to take some time out for ourselves, take a moment, take a breather, spend an hour by yourself, sit in a corner, get a notebook, minute it, note it, write it down, feel your feelings, find yourself safe spaces, networks, people to talk to, build some resilience in your mind, and really take it a day at a time. That's all I can really say. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, take it from a place of understanding and learning, and try and process everything not from a deeply personal space, but that we sometimes must be able to remove ourselves. Keep well, keep safe.
Thank you so much, Diance. It is not over. I think that I will be inviting you here again because there is a lot. It's just that your story, every segment is very important, and it is important for us to document that for all the reasons that we archive, especially for our future generations. So, thank you for sharing your story. and contributing to the growing archive of African trans history. Um, um, I'm
Thank you
privileged.
so much for having me, Mukasa.
I am very
Thank you for the
privileged.
great work that you guys are doing.
Yes, but I'm more privileged to be with you today, to speak to you, to be in conversation with you today. And Tiha, of course, is very grateful for for your contribution to this body of history. So I am Victor Mukasa, everybody, and I was in conversation with Deyonce Naris from Namibia, a prominent trans activist, somebody who has contributed hugely to our trans movement in Africa, based in Namibia. So until next time, from Deyonce and I, we want to say au revoir and have some queer trans joy wherever you are.
Bye. Greetings.